Obscurus. An obscurus was the manifestation of the repressed energy of a young wizard or witch, known as an obscurial. Described as a dark and parasitic force, an obscurus was created when the wizard child in question consciously attempted to repress their magical abilities or were forced to do so through physical or psychological abuse. This energy could manifest itself as a separate entity that could erupt in violent, destructive fury. When an obscurial lost control, the obscurus force was released, often focused on the cause of the obscurial's torment, but also causing destruction in its wake. The obscurus could be largely invisible or appear as a flying, incorporeal, and amorphous entity with the appearance of a black, fluid-like cloud, or a violent torrent of darkness, sometimes with a reddish core. Some described it as a dark wind or dark mass with shining white eyes. Its appearance could be oleaginous, or rich in, covered with, or producing oil, oily or greasy. There had also been instances when a face briefly emerged from the shadowy entity, or a white glowing image of the host appeared inside of it. The size and might of an obscurus depended on the innate power of its host. The more powerful an obscurial, the more powerful their obscurus. When an obscurial reached their emotional and mental breaking point, they could lose control completely and physically transform into an obscurus. Its size and mass at specific times may also have been connected to the level of negative emotions that triggered it at that instance, as well as the current mental state of its host. In this state, they were enormously destructive to their surroundings, to the point of causing objects to levitate or break without physically being in contact with them. This notably caused damage to structures and objects near the host. However, they could be calmed down by someone they trust, which causes them to revert to their corporeal state, though being emotionally conflicted could cause the obscurial to transform back and forth. An obscurus often targeted people that were the source of their host's distress, as Credence Barebones Obscurus went after Henry Shaw after he was insulted by him, though it took longer to attack Mary Lou Barebones since Credence was so emotionally close to her. When his adoptive sister ran in fear of him and Gellert Grindelwald, in the guise of Percival Graves, stated that he had lied to Credence about taking him in as a wizard, Credence lost control completely of his obscurus, causing widespread damage in New York in December 1926. An effective defense against obscurus and death from his hands was a very strong shield charm. Gunnar Grimson did that in Paris in September 1927 when he killed Irma Duggar, which enraged Barebone to the extent that he wanted to kill him. In 1932, Albus defended himself against Credence, which released his obscurus when they both were dueling in Berlin. Dumbledore then used his Deluminator and shield charm so as not to get killed. When an obscurus killed someone, it left specific marks on the victim's body, largely focused on their face. When the host obscurial died, the obscurus typically vanished along with them, though Newt Scamander successfully kept one when a Sudanese girl died by encasing it in a magical bubble. It seemed that obscurials could not be killed in obscurus form. The obscurus may have been shattered, but the obscurial themselves would survive, as Credence Barebone did in December 1926 after being assaulted heavily by offensive spells cast by Makusa Aurors, in their attempt to destroy him. However, Credence was noted to be an unusually powerful obscurus, which may well possibly have contributed to his remarkable survival. Obscurial. An obscurial was a young wizard or witch who had developed a dark parasitical magical force, known as an obscurus, as a result of their magic being suppressed through psychological or physical abuse. According to Albus Dumbledore, an obscurial could possibly be healed by replacing their feelings of alienation, which ultimately created their obscurus, with a sense of belonging. When a magical child was forced to repress their talent through physical or psychological abuse, they developed a parasitical magical force inside of them called an obscurus, resulting from their strong emotions of distress. An obscurial might lose control when they reach their emotional and mental breaking point, releasing their obscurus as an invisible, or nearly invisible, destructive wind. In extreme cases, they might physically transform into an obscurus. When an obscurial released the obscurus within, their eyes became pure white and their physical form vibrated and became distorted. While the obscurus was invisible, the obscurial could physically interact with the world without making physical contact, though the ability was uncontrolled and triggered by the host's distress, anger, or other intense emotions. This notably damaged structures and objects near the host. Children possessed by an obscurus almost always died before their 10th birthdays, but as exemplified by Credence Barebone, a wizard or witch with tremendous latent powers could survive longer. Ariana Dumbledore also survived for a number of years further. When the child died, the obscurus vanished along with them, though Newt's commander successfully kept one alive when its host died by encasing it in a magical bubble. It seemed that obscurials couldn't be killed in Obscurus form. The Obscurus might be shattered temporarily, but the obscurial themselves would still be alive if Credence was anything to go by. However, he was only one example and was stated to be unusually powerful. However, even if an obscurial survived past their 10th birthday, their nature would slowly poison and kill them. Dumbledore, having witnessed this with Ariana, told Newt that, every time it grew darker, it began to poison her. As a result, Dumbledore recognized the signs of Credence's nature slowly killing him, and he told Newt that Credence couldn't be saved. As he had previously believed Credence could have been saved had he been given enough love, this indicated that at its earliest stages, it would have been possible for the power of love to cure them of their Obscurus, but at a certain stage, a wizard/witch with an Obscurus will no longer be able to be saved. As seen with Credence, Obscurials were still capable of expressing their natural magical abilities, although this appeared to be rarely accomplished as Credence was the only one known to have done so. Despite no longer suppressing his magical nature, Credence also retained his obscurial abilities in Obscurus and was capable of utilizing both in battle. History. In ancient times, when wizards were hunted by muggles, obscurials were more common. However, when the wizarding world and the muggle world separated with the development of the International Statute of Wizarding Secrecy, the trend dropped as children were no longer forced to hide their true nature among their own. They could be taught to accept and control their powers without suppressing them. Ariana Dumbledore became an obscurial following an attack by 3 muggle boys on her. Although Ariana lived to age 14, her obscurial nature slowly poisoned her to death and her family could do nothing to ease her pain. Ariana was eventually killed while trying to intervene in a duel between her brothers and Gellert Grindelwald. In 1926, approximately 3 months before his trip to New York, British magizoologist Newt Scamander discovered an 8-year-old Sudanese obscurial during a study of African magical creatures. The girl had been trapped and severely abused by fearful muggles, causing the development of her powers. Newt attempted to help her and succeeded in separating the Obscurus from its young host, but the girl didn't survive. However, he did manage to magically preserve the Obscurus. She represented the first documented case of an obscurial in centuries. Obscurials were believed to have completely disappeared from the United States of America by 1926, according to Serafina Piqueri. To the knowledge of the International Confederation of Wizards, an Obscurus had not existed in the United States for over 200 years. However, that same year a young wizard named Credence Barebone was revealed to be an obscurial, and went on a destructive rampage that caused significant damage to the city, also causing a major breach of the Statute of Secrecy. Newt's experiences in Sudan allowed him to correctly identify Credence as an obscurial. He attempted to help the ailing young man but was thwarted by interference by Makusa Aurors and Gellert Grindelwald, then disguised as Makusa agent Percival Graves. They attacked Credence, who was apparently destroyed. However, Newt's subsequent actions did reveal Grindelwald's identity and erased the memories of New York's Muggle population, ending the Statute of Secrecy crisis. Credence survived and sought to learn his true heritage while Grindelwald sought to use him against Albus Dumbledore. Grindelwald eventually revealed Credence's true identity as Aurelius Dumbledore and helped him learn to express his magic, although Credence remained an obscurial. Credence became able to use both his innate magical powers and his abilities as an obscurial, making him a powerful force. By the 1930s, however, Credence's nature as an obscurial was slowly poisoning him to death, which Dumbledore recognized from his experiences with Ariana, Credence's aunt. Known obscurials. Sudanese girl. A young girl who was persecuted by her village because she exhibited magical abilities. She died when she was 8 years old, with Scamander preserving her Obscurus before her death. Ariana Dumbledore. A young girl who became an obscurial because of the suffering that she suffered at the hands of 3 Muggle boys. The Dumbledore family concealed Ariana's true nature, but she was accidentally killed during a duel between her brothers and Gellert Grindelwald. Credence Barebone. Regularly beaten and psychologically abused by his adoptive mother Mary Lou Barebone, who hated magic. He was eventually consumed by his Obscurus and went on a rampage which destroyed large parts of New York. He miraculously survived the incident. However, by the 1930s, his nature was slowly poisoning Credence to death.
If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.